22 Nights of Terror has officially concluded, where we experienced daily demonic trickery with the fabric of Sanctuary being altered every 24 hours. I'm going to talk through my 5 worst major disappointments of this holiday event, a little bit of a pot-stirring controversy with one of the dashes of terror, in addition to sharing some conclusive and closing thoughts. Please do also share your personal experiences in the comments below, as I want to hear from you directly on what were your major disappointments with the 22 Nights of Terror. Jumping right in and kicking us off with the inaugural major disappointment of the holiday event was, of course, Thorn's damage. Thorn's damage is not really useful unless you're Macro Bio Boy grinding a pacifist run. Bidirectionally, this barely scratches the surface or does any amplified damage back towards those monsters, and it really was, in my opinion, a complete waste of a Dash of Terror festive buff, as this really didn't do much for your gameplay experience. It kind of was just there, you played per usual, you didn't really notice any systematic difference of having this active, so this comes in at my #1 major disappointment. Coming in at number 2 and number 3, I'm going to basically group these together because they're interconnected, and that has to do with 100% damage increase to undead and demons. We happen to see undead twice throughout the holiday event. We only saw demons once, but I'm going to be very direct with this. I think these are legitimate trash festive buffs. These do not universally benefit majority of characters, including, let's call it, the tier 1 citizens of the elementals, the Hammerdins, the Javadzons, etc. And even for a Fodin who already got major buff, you're already melting undead and demons because of those buffs. You don't really need these added modifiers. I suppose if you were a melee character or you're doing Ubers and you're a smiter, sure, that buff to demon damage obviously helps, but many of the gears that you wear already have affixes that increase damage to undead and demons. I just thought this was a complete waste of time. I don't really know what they were thinking with these two, so these come in at my number 2 and number 3 major disappointments of the holiday event. While I understand that collecting that coin is an important part of the game for repairs and gambling among other things, I was somewhat still majorly disappointed with number 4 being the increase in gold find. Gold find is such a common affix that you have, whether it's on a Geeds, it's on charms, it's on items, and if you're a gold find barber or horker, you already kind of maximize that in your first couple weeks of the seasons, and to me, people really aren't looking for gold find at this point, especially through season 2. So sure, is it a little bit of a nice to have? Could some people have been really excited about this? I suppose, but again, like the others in this segment, don't really understand why they at least look to buff gold find. There were definitely better alternatives, and we will share some of those coming up. And closing us out with my top 5 worst major disappointments was Replenish Life. I think this is very similar to Thorns, where even though this passive effect was there, you didn't actually notice any differentiation to your gameplay experience. And you also have to think about it with Replenish Life, like others, there are common affixes for this mod on many items. And another thing to think about, and many people do play this Act 2 Merc, where if you actually take an Act 2 Mercenary, you get a Prayer Merc, and you put an Insight on, for those that don't know, there already is a passive link between meditation and prayer, which actually kicks back that Replenish Life benefit to you as the primary character. So you already have the ability in the natural gameplay to stimulate added Replenish Life without this festive buff Dash of Terror being manipulated. So again, cool, I suppose. I'm glad you guys thought about something a little bit different, but similar to Thorns and everything else, I just saw this as lack of excitement, not really needed, and didn't really change our gameplay experience. In the opening, I talked a little bit about some controversy and a possible pot stirring of a festive buff, and that has to do with Moo farming. For those that played the entirety of the 22 Nights of Terror, you would have noticed that we had 24 hours of terrorized cows 3 different times over the calendar. Now, I'm going to call out Zax here in our Sanctuary Discord because he did paint an interesting lens for me that I didn't think about the first time, which is this possibly more of a nerf than a buff? Now, what I mean by that is, if you think about this, right, if you have 24 hours of cows, that means the preceding 23 hours don't, of course, have diversity in terrorized zones. Now, if you are a character, which is very common, like a Fodin, you can't herd animals. You're not cowing in general. If you are a melee barbarian or any other melee character, again, you are typically avoiding cows because it just takes far too long to kill. Now, on the flip side of this, I understand those that love the idea of 400 plus cows, an open field, the Cow King. Horkers could have a perpetual field day doing this over and over and over again, but in general, the elite density is really low. on a per capita experience perspective, it is not necessarily the best terrorized zone to maximize experience if you are also one of those characters that wanted to continue making that push to 99. So this is why I found this the most controversial. I saw this as a hot topic in Discords and across forums. I see those for and against. I am somewhere in the middle. I do always love me some cows, but at the same time, I personally got bored pretty fast. Before I jump into some closing thoughts and feedback, I do want to say thank you to Blizzard. I do genuinely appreciate that you continue to emphasize and put time and energy into the game of Diablo 2 that we all know and love too well. It's great, especially in the lull of Season 2, that you guys thought about these holiday events to try to adapt the game and provide a little bit of stimulation to it. So for that, we are very appreciative. But at the same time, there is some candid feedback that I wanted to supply. So if you think about these types of events getting into Season 3, hopefully you can pull the community in the future ahead of rolling these out. My first major point of feedback is I would have liked to see a static list and different list of actually having 22 unique events. We had a lot of repeat behavior, which makes me think that there were a lot of different buffs that might have actually been in a draw, and it truly was a statistical randomizer. Case in point by the fact that on the final day, we happened to see that 75% all resistance that we didn't see prior. But again, I think if you just had 22 unique events, you statically link those to certain days, I think that that would have been a more enjoyable experience for many. Now, let's dive into some of the buffs that I would have liked to personally see. The first of which, I love this, I also have seen this echoed across other Discords, is the idea that we would have all terrorized zones lit up for 24 hours. I have to think that you have the ability to code this into the game very easily, which means that if somebody wanted to do chaos for 24 hours, Worldstone for 24 hours, Pits for 24 hours, Powering Andy for 24 hours. You get the point. That would have been really, really exciting. I think that would have been up there with that gambling event as well. That was definitely one of my major points of feedback, is that would have been a major, I think, Dash of Terror buff that people would have loved to see. In the same vein of this, and going back to cows, again, instead of having cows 3 times for 24 hours, let's see chaos, let's see Worldstone, let's see those primary areas that the Diablo 2 community loves to power, chaos really being, I think, the mecca of those in particular. So linking to my first point, let's just have a little bit more of unique differentiation next time. Let's not see that repeat behavior, but that is definitely one of those that I would have liked to see. Now, I'm going to shout out Sweet Phil on this one. He called this out. I also agree with this. Increasing the general monster density of both white mobs and elites. You absolutely have the lever to do this in mods. I think they also could code this pretty easily for those 24-hour windows. I just think the idea of going into these common areas and having the gates of hell open and flood with additional monster densities would have not only been a challenge, but super exciting as part of the gameplay experience. So maybe something for Blizzard to think about in future events is having those types of increased densities. One other one that I wanted to call out here is just some quirkiness is I would have liked to see some aesthetic changes, whether it was snow across the screen, you have Diablo wearing a Christmas cap, you got Nilithak or somebody having a white beard. I think it would have been really cool to see some of those different things called out aesthetically in the game, and that would have definitely added to the overall experience of the 22 Nights of Terror. Now, for those that may not have seen it, up here in the upper left, I actually did have a video highlighting my top 5 favorite festive buffs and positive experiences throughout this event, so please feel free to check that out. Before you go, don't forget to like and subscribe, and again, do drop those comments below. I want to hear your personal feedback on your major disappointments throughout this holiday event, and as I like to say, si vis pacem parabellum. If you want peace, prepare for war theory.